Here we go, episode number 15 of the Soul Rollers podcast. My name is Jackson Gage. I'm here with my co-host, William Dennis, aka Turner Smiles, and we're here to talk about Jiu-Jitsu, life, self-mastery. One day we'll go into the story behind Turner Smiles. I'll tell that story. And yeah, man, just another week of Jiu-Jitsu and training. I've been training more. I know William's been training, and a lot of our teammates had competitions this past weekend. Things are going good. And yeah, man, just here again. We've been getting a lot of good feedback on this podcast, so we appreciate that, man. If you listen and you get value, let us know. Let us know if there's anything you want to hear, anything you'd like to, any questions you have. If you're, you think we may be able to give you value. Again, we're just beginning our journey as well, but we've experienced a little bit of shit so far, so we may be able to help somebody out for sure. And yeah, man, I just real quick, just this topic, I wanted to share this with you. I think I shared it with you a little bit, but I just wanted to share it. Just how jiu-jitsu is a constant reminder of humility, man. Well, first off, before I get to that story, William, how's your day going, man? How you doing? How's everything going? I know you've been getting a couple people hit you up about the podcast, and training's going good. Your fucking ears hurting you. And yeah, man.
Yeah, it's going great. This weekend was like a competition down in Fullerton, and some of my teammates went down and competed. And so, of course, when I got back from my tournament, I wanted to share like anything I took from it. I wanted to share, which was super helpful with you, like helping me kind of describe the experience. We went through it in that podcast episode, like 12. And then when I was training with the guys that were going to compete, I was like trying to recreate the pressure I felt from my opponent and trying to like say, this is what it felt like. And I was trying to recreate it as he was trying to work his game. And so we were working on that together leading up to his tournament. And really that's what jiu-jitsu is about, is like shared experiences. And I think that's what's life about. Like you learn the most from a shared experience, not from like some wise person that's a genius expert and is just telling you what to do. Like the shared experiences are so powerful and moving. And I think that's like the key secret to being a vulnerable, like open, authentic human being, is you can connect and relate with everyone. And that's what jiu-jitsu teaches you. It's like, you don't see, like my professor walks in to the academy. He's not arrogant and like, yeah, I know it all, whatever. He's very humble, very open, and he shares his experiences throughout his jiu-jitsu journey, which creates a lot of relatable experiences for me to attach onto, learn from, and grow in. And that's all we're trying to do with this podcast, is going, man, we're figuring this out as we're going, and we're just sharing it, just like you do with your partners when you're rolling. It's like you're sharing an experience with someone, and they're giving you pointers, you're giving them different looks and different experiences as they're growing and you're growing. And that's what it was all about for me. Is I was really excited about them competing, so that I can try to share my experience, see what they get from it, learn from them as they come back with different experiences. And that's what competing is all about. And that's what jiu-jitsu is all about, is just sharing experiences. So I really want to highlight that. And, Daniel went and competed, and he seems to have had a really good experience. I haven't had him like a lot on the phone yet, but he's coming back today. And he just called me this morning. He was super pumped about the episode that I shared with him on episode 12 about my experience. And I'm just excited to hear his experience, and I'll share that when I get more details on it. But the ability to share our experiences, I think, is where the value comes from. And I'm excited about it.
I think there's it's something just like there's a girl, Vanessa, that she's white belt, and she had her first competition this time, and she's been preparing and talking about it and getting her mind right around it. She listened to that episode. She's been listening to all the episodes as well. So thanks, Vanessa and JP. And to see someone you train with every night, like go out there and freaking put it on the line. It gets you, there's a certain connection, that you have with these people that you train with every night, so you almost feel like you're there watching them and shit. And yeah, man, it's like, you're in a fight, she's in here training with there's not a lot of girls that train with us. So she's in here training with these big dudes every night. And then you watch her go out there, and she was freaking scrapping, man. It's like, dude, it's a different level. You see who has heart and not, but it was cool, man. So, yeah, man, props to everybody who went out there and did their thing this past weekend. That shit takes takes heart, and it's a good challenge for yourself, man. So um, there was another, before I forget that the story, and it's kind of off the topic that we're of competition, but it's on the topic of the beauty of jiu-jitsu, man. And it's in my realm here. And it's just the constant humility that we experience, you know. My professor was at the competition this weekend, so we had another professor fill in, really cool guy, man. And uh and I got a chance to roll with him. And man, he didn't it's he obviously he didn't hold back, like you can go when you're that good, man. He's a competitive black belt, and young dude, fucking strong, good, and you just realize, like, I'm doing this, 6 or 7 minute fucking roll with this dude. And he wasn't, he was beat, he whooped my ass, he whooped my ass back, left, right, fucking whooped my ass, choked the fuck out of me, got me with this paper cutter choke where I thought my head was gonna pop off of my goddamn shoulders and shit, you know. And but it was good, afterward we laughed, and he's like, I went hard with you, man. I'm like, no shit, motherfucker, but while you're doing what the point I wanted to get across was that, you know it's just I don't know how to explain the beauty of the humility that we learn from getting our ass beat like that, you know and maybe you'll have some insight into it. But I'm laying there under this guy in like north south after I've been choked like 3 times, and I got like 3 4 minutes, there's probably like 3 minutes left. I look over at the clock, I'm like, fuck, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, if this dude was a dick and there was no time limit and he didn't like me, he could fucking, I would be helpless right now. And I've been doing this shit for a few years. I'm okay. I'm a strong dude, athletic, and I would be fucking completely helpless to this man if he wanted to fucking kill me with his hands, you know? And that could be a scary feeling. And it's a good reminder to be out, just to be humble walking through life, man. Just to remember who you are, man. And you remember we're all fucking equal. And if you forget, you can, jujitsu is a good way to keep you in that mindset consistently, um and that goes over into, I had this guy yesterday, and then I'll let you go into that idea after this. But I had this guy yesterday. I parked apparently in his parking stall, and I'm with my daughters, well, my little daughter, and I parked there, and he came behind me, and he's honking, I'm like, Jesus, all right, sorry, man. So I like pull out, and I pull into the next stall next to it, and he pulls up next to me, little frame dude, you know, who knows, but he pulls up next to me, and he gets out, and he bangs his car door against my car out of anger, like when he gets out, boom. And he's actually the owner of the fucking boba, the boba place next to our jiu-jitsu gym. So I fucking frequent his goddamn, I think I'm the most frequent fucking customer at I honestly, I get boba there almost every fucking day. They know what I order when I walk in the motherfucker, but he didn't know it was me. You know what I mean? And he bangs my car right there where my daughter's in the car. My other daughter's walking up. She's like, Dad, that guy banged your car. I'm like, I know, but obviously I didn't want to, what am I going to do? Get out and beat the fuck out of this guy? But this guy doesn't know. And I know the guy. So I know he doesn't train anything. He's not athletic. I've talked to him. He's never done anything but fucking, run a tea business. And I'm like, you don't, you're banging this guy's car, and the guy in the car I didn't even get out and say anything to him, man. Like, okay, let your anger out on my car, motherfucker. See you later. I'm gonna go buy tea from you in a little bit, but he doesn't know that the guy in the car may have the anger in him to fucking smash his head in the cement if he wanted to, but it's and maybe 6 or 7 years ago, before I started training jujitsu, I would have got out. Maybe I would have got out and threw him into the fucking wall or something, but why? Why? So yeah, man, just the humility that's learned. And it's funny how the minute you think you're getting a little good, the minute you think you're getting some skills, the minute you think you're leveling up, is the time you really need a couple of dudes to come in and just remind you that you fucking got a long fucking ways to go in jujitsu, And I don't think that lesson will ever fucking stop, So anyhow, that was my ass whooping lesson for the fucking week, and I just wanted to share it on here.
Well, like I usually do with you, and you know this, and I hope it's okay to do now with your permission. But how are those two things connected? The two stories you shared. What is it about how the black belt taught you humility through jujitsu that you could have applied in your connection with that angry guy banging on your car? How are those two things connected?
Well, I think they're connected in a couple of ways. For one, the first way it's connected is the guy with no humility that was banging my car, he's never been taught humility. So if you didn't have a humble guy sitting in the car who's just letting him destroy my car and not even saying shit to him, I just, you know, it's a material thing, this could escalate, I could hurt that motherfucker. So instead of, that guy, it was a picture of somebody in society who's never been taught humility, who could get himself killed by behaving with anger, for one. And for two, just the humility of getting your ass whooped so much allows you, for some reason, to stay calm. And I mean, I would say I already stay pretty calm just from being a cop in situations like that. But that was a whole nother level of calm for my life, experiencing that, sitting there and watching a guy bang my car and just sitting in the fucking car, not even reacting to it. And I think that type of calm humility comes from, having other man fucking wrap their goddamn forearm around your neck and just smash your trachea and then smile afterward. But I think it goes
Well,
both ways.
yeah, and so the way that black belt showed up, do you think he was trying to hurt you or slam you or trying to break you, or was he trying to go hard on you to show you like what you're saying, teach you levels, teach you something, right?
No, yeah, he was definitely just being a good professor. He
So
was yeah.
taking his wisdom and how he showed up, how could you now that because this is hypothetical at this point, how could you have approached that experience differently? Not saying the way you approached it was wrong, but how could you approach it with the wisdom of the way in which that black belt showed up for you, teaching you humility? How could you have represented that to the man that banged on your car if we were to go back in time and do it again?
I mean, I
Just
don't
curious.
know that. I don't know. I mean, if we're teaching you, if you're saying how could I have taught that guy humility, you know,
Maybe not teach him, but how could you have represented humility? Because
I,
necessarily your black belt didn't, he's presenting an opportunity for you to learn. You have to be willing to learn for him to be able to teach, right? When the
yeah,
students, the teacher will appear.
yeah,
So, and that scenario, when he's on top of you kicking your ass, you're a student, right?
yeah,
Just like I've been
exactly.
a student multiple times, pretty much all the time when I roll. But in life, how could you have shown up as the black belt that you are as a man, maybe not as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, but as a man, and letting that guy know maybe in the future, hey, I'm a calm, loving being, but you could run into someone that will crack your skull for something like that. You know what I mean? And that might
Yeah.
be a little graphic way of saying it, but
I mean, there's different ways to show up. There's different ways to show up for that. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, honestly, looking back, I feel like the way I responded was the most high level response that I could have had just as a human being. Like, in my lifetime, I've never responded to situations like that. Like with somebody throwing a tantrum outside of my car like that. To be able to just sit. I wasn't sitting there in fear. I was sitting there and like, if I get out and who knows if the guy's mad enough to bang my fucking car. So with his door, with my daughter sitting right there, so I showed my daughters like a calm, fucking relaxed way to react to something with zero anger. And I think that was the highest level I could have reacted. But I mean, because I could have got out and it could have got fucking, then I end up fucking hurting this dude. And I didn't, being a cop, that situations can escalate fucking in the blink of an eye, and you got to make those decisions. You got to look not what's happening in the moment with our emotions, but you got to look what are our emotions going to create with our reactions in fucking 5 minutes from now. And I've reacted with anger many times, and it's led to fucking injuries and hurting other people and shit.
yeah.
So for me, I liked how I responded to that. I liked how I responded. And now if I was sitting there out of fear because I'm scared of the guy, then maybe that's a little bit different. But
And that's not really the point of my question, because I don't think you handled it incorrectly. It was more of like, how can we just continue to like glean so much value from these black belts? Because they have so much knowledge and wisdom, and they teach us so much humility. Because he doesn't, perform the jujitsu like he does in order to punish us or hurt us or be angry at us. He's teaching us things. And that's what I'm saying, looking at these circumstances in life, because I have a similar story and I had no idea we're going to talk about this stuff on this podcast, but hey, it's probably relatable and valuable in some capacity. So these are shared experiences that we have. A couple of weeks back at the academy, we were just starting to warm up, and all of a sudden we had like the black plastic on all the windows that go around the gym, um, for COVID reasons and all that stuff, and we just hear this loud crash into the glass, and I'm like, what the heck? And there's these little holes cut in the plastic to kind of let the air in between the glass and the plastic be. And I look through the hole, and there's like this guy out there banging on our glass windows with his bike and all these metal bars. He was just losing his mind. You know that from like law enforcement, like when they're just super like aggressive.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh crap, he's going to break the glass. And I didn't know if he was going to break the glass and come in. I don't know what he was doing. And I had my two kids there, and I'm like, he's not breaking the glass and coming in with my kids in here. And so I threw off my gi jacket and kind of went out there right away with a lot of the other guys that were going out, because we're all there to train. And I had gotten there, behind a few other guys. And one of the guys was ready to like throw down and just take that dude down and go at it,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
he's a great dude. I'm like, I was kind of impressed, because then, as a cop, like there's guys that would say, yeah, let's do this. And then when it comes down to the fighting, they're like, whoa, I got to go to the car, and they run away.
Yeah.
And so some people they want to like show up powerfully in those circumstances, but some aren't just made for that. It takes a lot of humility to know that, hey, this is not my place, also. And I'm not saying you should be aggressive all the time. You shouldn't, but he was down. I could tell. I'm like, whoa, hey, hold on, don't fight him yet. And from my experience, me as a cop, like I was a very aggressive guy. I would be like, oh yeah, you want to fight? Let's go. Like I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And so this experience was very different for me, because when I walked out there, the guy was super aggressive. I mean, he was ready to fight. Like he was yelling and angry and pacing and throwing fists and just really going at it. And I immediately put my hands up, in the air, and just said, hey, look at me. Like everything's okay. You're all right, man. Look at me. And I just started talking him down. I just started like really talking him down and really just calming him down. I'm like, hey, you're safe, man. You're okay. Hey, just don't hit the glass. Look at me, and I was just talking him down and keeping him calmer. And the other guys were like ready to like grab him or whatever, everyone was really tense. And I was just like, holy crap, no. And I just kept his attention. I kept telling him he's okay. I kept telling him like, it's all right, man. You can go on your way. You're safe. And you could tell he was like a caged animal. Like he didn't know how to get out. And I just kept talking him out. And he ended up trying to like go towards the back door of the academy. And I'm like, no, you're not going to go this way, but you can go that way. You can go that way. You can go however you want, man. You're just not going to go this way. And like ended up talking him down, and we didn't have to fight him. And he went on his own way, and he was really upset and agitated, but he left, and he caused some damage to the windows and the glass, and they got it fixed, but I didn't have to fight him. And for me, I was just like, what the hell? Like I never thought about de-escalating. I always like jumped on the fights and just started getting in fist fights and doing all that. So very similar to what you're describing. For us who's been in the violence, it's not that we can't be violent. We can, but we've learned and grown, in the experience. And that's what, coach came up to me after, because he had the baby with him. He had his new baby with him. So he was like holding her, and he couldn't go outside, which he would probably been the best one to take out there, the black belt. But thankfully I was able to talk the guy down, and no one had to fight, and no one had to get hurt. No one had to do any of that. And so it was a very valuable experience. And I don't know what that guy took from it. He may have just been very mentally challenged, like just agitated and not remembered it. I don't know. But at least for me and the guys, like we all didn't have to fight someone. We didn't have to hurt someone, and we got to just go back and go train. So
yeah,
very similar experience with anger and emotions. So yeah, sometimes that's not the best time to approach someone, and really only that because you were there, which I don't doubt by any means as being the correct approach. I was just trying to challenge and see if there was something that came out of comparing the two experiences, because I think mentally you're very much on a very high level. Like you see the world differently, you see material things differently, you see parking spaces differently. You know what I mean? So it's not going to upset you. And you're like, man, go ahead and hit my car. I don't care.
Yeah.
But what I hope is like we can take black belt kind of wisdom off the mats and into our lives. And maybe the next time you buy a boba and you're, that guy's there, you can be like, hey man, can I chat with you real quic? Like, how
That
can you
hey,
challenge him that way?
hey,
And I'm sure you
that's
probably will. That's who you are. Like
that's
that's
the fucking that's the plan. That was the it's funny you say that because that was my plan. I was like, I'm gonna go buy from his business like I do every day and then ask him why he banged my car door. I'm gonna definitely that was my plan. And the other thing I was thinking at that time too is his wife is there. She works 7 days a week, fucking full time in that place. She's always at that. She never takes a day off, and she's really nice person. Little lady from China, man, really freaking cool, really nice lady. And he's like, you could tell he's got the bad vibe. He's always fucking mad and shit. And but while he's doing that, I'm like, I would hate to. I really like that lady, and I like her business. I don't care for him, but I was also thinking of that. Like, I want to keep going to business with her. I'm gonna talk to this guy later and maybe I'll talk about it next week. Maybe I'll talk to him this week and I'm going to bring on next week what happens with the conversation, because I am going to ask him about it and tell him my daughters are in the car, you're banging my car and shit. And then as far as your story, you were saying, I don't know if that guy got anything out of it, but maybe he didn't, but the dudes who were around you did, they definitely did. You know what I mean? Because being able to talk people down was even being a police officer and being in those situations, man. Like I thought that was one of my strong suits, and that's a skill, man, to be able to talk people down. And if you're good at it, you never use fucking force. Force is rare if you know how to talk to people. Communicating and showing that you have a heart and connecting to someone else's heart and treating another person like a human, man, you can fucking talk anybody down, really. You
Yeah.
know,
And
but
that's, afterwards, coach is like, hey, man, thank you for handling that circumstance earlier. And I'm like, sir, that honestly for me was what I needed. I approached that with humility and grace and compassion. And so I'm proud of myself. So I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to have that experience. And like I said, even if that guy didn't get anything out of it, because maybe he wasn't there mentally to be able to, but he didn't get hurt. I didn't have to hurt him, and this is coming from a guy. And I think 2011, I had the most use of forces out of everyone in our department. That's
yeah,
like 100 something officers.
yeah.
That's a big department. And I had more use of forces than anyone.
Yeah, I remember people talking about you behind your back and shit. Like when you were coming to William came to he was a new guy to our tactical team that we had. And a tactical team is pretty freaking, we were a tactical team. It's a small group of guys in a very fucking high crime area. And, you got it. You're very close knit. You're together every day. You're, depending on each other. And we had a few guys that were going to come that we were thinking of bringing into our team because we had an opening, and William was one of them. And I remember some of the guys who believe everything they hear were like, I don't know, man, this kid William Dennis, he's a loose cannon. He's got a fucking different IA every month, man. I don't know about bringing him in here, you know. But then most of us were like, well, that's what the fuck we want. We want someone who's got some balls, we want someone who's going to go out there and have our back when we fucking get in a fight in an alley somewhere, And because there's a lot, no offense, but I don't want to go deep into this, but there's a lot of officers out there who won't do that, and again, I don't want to make this a whole cop fucking podcast, but that, William was fucking getting investigated and shit, uses of force all the goddamn time. And maybe you didn't have the skill back then to talk people down as much, maybe you got better. Cause I remember listening to you talk to people and you were fucking confrontational as fuck. Like you did not talk people down. You were they were like, when you talk to people, it would make them want to fight back then when you were younger, man.
My approach was ask, tell, make.
And
so I ask you, I tell you, then I make you. And that's confrontation 101,
Yeah.
So, and that's what I was saying. I was very proud of myself because I've grown a lot as a human being, because that's what this journey is all about is, and I've mentioned this before, coach wants you to be a black belt in the academy, also outside of it. And he represents that as a man. I've seen the way he approaches and communicates with his wife. I've seen how he, is a father. I've seen how he treats each and every one of us in his academy. And I'm like, damn, he's a good man. Like, you're a good man. Look how you handle that circumstance. Some people would be so upset about their possession, their car. To me, it's like, take it. You want the car? You don't have to hurt anyone. Just here. It's a stupid car. Like, burn it. I don't care. I never want to take a human life or cause human harm over property or possessions anymore. I've been there. I've done all that stuff, and like I said, I don't know how this podcast got to this point, but maybe it's valuable. Maybe someone's thinking this or they need to hear this. I don't know. But human life is sacred. We should value it. We should honor it, but we should also understand ourselves deep enough so that we can have the skill sets to preserve our life if we needed. Because what if that guy got out of his car and approached your daughters or you in an aggressive way?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have skill sets to defend yourself? And that's what this art is about, is defense, self-defense, and I was fully ready and capable to defend myself against the guy that was bashing those windows. And he was grabbing his bags, and there was different instincts as a cop that I just wanted to tackle him.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? No, I don't want to cause harm, and if I'm safe and these guys are safe, and we were, if it takes it to a certain line and he crosses it, I'm going to act. And I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to take him down right away. But I didn't have to do that, thankfully. And I think the same thing with you is when we don't have to cause harm, why would we? And as long as we can defend ourselves, which Jiu-Jitsu teaches you that art and that capability and that humility to know that you can, a lot of times you don't have to take the action that other people do because they are in fear and they don't know how to defend themselves. So they have to act right away. And that's the same thing as me as a cop. I just wasn't shown any other way. It wasn't like I had experience in different aspects of life. And they sure didn't teach you this stuff in the academy, to know that humility. To me, my life was on the line every single day I went to work, and it was. And I wasn't going to risk, common courtesies as, oh, I'm going home in a body bag. You know what I mean? So that's the mindset I had as a cop, which is going to cause a lot of confrontation and a lot of use of force. And that's why I don't think I was prepared by, training and everything else enough to make better decisions. And then to see the reflection that I have now after training jiu-jitsu for a year and a half, the impact it has on me. I was able to approach someone with love and compassion instead of aggression and violence, and that means a lot. And that's the same thing you just expressed in those two stories. You learned and were taught as a student, from an ass whooping, and then you didn't have to give an ass whooping, and you still have something to share, and you can approach, looking people as human beings who are angry, or maybe he's upset, maybe he's really challenged in life. Maybe there's something going on that we don't know about. And if we knew his story, what would change about our understanding of his actions,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, man. And yeah, that guy's, anyone who's that angry, man, in any form of life, any fucking walk of life, anyone who's that angry is suffering fucking immensely inside, and like that Buddha fucking story that we talk about, if someone offers you a gift and you don't accept it, who does that gift belong to? If someone offers you their anger and you don't accept it, it stays with them, and that's something I've had to learn over. I'm still learning that, not to accept other people's emotions, but if we accept other people's emotions, that can steer the course of our fucking life. We can walk ourselves right out of our dreams, our visions, our happiness by allowing someone else to steer how we feel, and I experienced that in marriage, letting someone else fucking steer where I was going with their unhappiness, man. And sometimes we have to learn through suffering. We learn through suffering in all goddamn times, we learn through suffering. So, and I think this, and you were saying, like, I don't know how the podcast got here, man. This is what the podcast is. It's not just Soul Rollers Jiu-Jitsu only. It's Soul Rollers Jiu-Jitsu life and self-mastery. We're meshing the three of these things. And so anybody who's listening, you probably do jiu-jitsu, but you may be suffering. You may be suffering in life in other areas. And, we're here to share our heart with you and let you know that we've suffered like a motherfucker in many different aspects for a long amounts of time. And it's been necessary, and it's always necessary to put yourself in these situations. Like, if you're not where you want to be and you have a vision for where you want to be, from where you are into where you want to be, there may be suffering in that process to get to where you want to be. Suffering sheds all the bullshit that, that we have inside of us. So, and the key, which we learn in jiu-jitsu, is to learn from our suffering, to get better from our suffering and to continue forward regardless of how we feel and how we suffer, so. And
and understanding that you are the one that creates the meaning behind that suffering. So the suffering and the struggle is guaranteed. You know what I mean? It's going to happen. You're getting it. It's not maybe. You will get it. Just like when you go and roll in jiu-jitsu, yeah, you're going to have resistance. You're probably going to get some stuff that you didn't expect. You might get your butt kicked, but there's value in it because you can create, you can take away from it. Like coach says, your worst day is your best because now you see so much more you can work on, improve on, grow. It's full of possibilities, right? And I feel like that's the same thing with life. If you're suffering, you can sit there and make that mean something bad about you and that you're trapped and stuck and helpless and hopeless. Or you can switch that on its head and go, okay, like this is where all the value is. This is where I grow. It's choose your hard, right? Life
Yep.
is hard.
Yeah.
Life, at least, and I tell my wife this all the time, and I've learned this from different teachers that I've learned from is 50% of life sucks. It's just going to suck. It's going to kick you straight in the teeth. And I've experienced that. There's just no way of getting around it. It's why we're human beings. It's not supposed to be, this floaty, rainbowy journey where you just like float around. Suffering creates contrast. Contrast allows you to see what works, what doesn't work. How much contrast is there in jiu-jitsu, right? You roll the purple belt, he slaps you around. You're like, whoa, there's some contrast. There's some struggle. You're better for it. Right. Same thing with these tournaments. Whether you compete and you win gold or you lose every match you go against, I guarantee there's contrast. It exposes you to everything you thought worked about your game and everything you didn't even know about, like the possibility of adding to your game, just like rolling with the black belt did for you, right? It created contrast, humility, all these different, valuable things that come from it. Contrast. Suffering is contrast. It doesn't have to be, a declaration of your inadequacies. It's not that. Same thing with interactions with other people. They mirror to us our own inadequacies, right? They mirror our propensity to violence, which was a truth for me. And I say that not like as a bragging thing. You know, it's at times I've had to work through a lot of therapy and healing and stuff to deal with what I experienced, the violence that I went through as a cop. And I know that that's true. And that's why I'm sharing that so vulnerably is, man, the sacredity of life is much worth much more than a temper tantrum over someone in the gas line and you cut me and blah, blah, let's fight and stuff like that. I see people get angry about things that truly won't matter in the long run, and 5 years from now. So why would they matter in this moment where you're going to get in a fist fight and beat someone up over, it's not fun. Violence isn't something, it's like what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. It's like, really, is that true? It's, it's not about maybe it makes us harder. Maybe it calluses us to, the kindness that is and compassion that's available to us. And is that a good thing? Not really. It wasn't for me in my experience. It just numbed me out. But it doesn't have to be negative. It doesn't have to make us darker. It can make us harder. It can make us a man that looks at an experience where someone bangs his car door in anger and he goes, hey, I see him for where he's at and he's angry and he's upset and I'm going to stay over here. I'm going to keep my family safe and I'm going to let him be on his way. It's a car. Who cares? That's growth. That's evolution through a process of suffering, right? You've had to suffer. You've had to cause suffering to see the value that you approaching that man doesn't represent anymore. And the same thing for me. That's what I saw when I walked out of that experience. My daughter was proud of me too. She's like, Dad, like everyone was talking about how you handled that. I'm like, what? We got in the car. They're like, everyone was saying you did a really good job. Great job, Dad. And I'm like, wow, thank you, babe. I just wanted you to know that you're safe, and that was it. And she's like, yeah, I felt safe. And I'm like, dang, coming from a guy that had to deal with a lot of shame and guilt over the violence he perpetuated against, people. Granted, it was justified. I don't want you to think just because I went to IAs, that means I was a bad guy. I was out there doing illegal stuff. The thing that I wasn't afraid to do the use of force because it was justified. I was putting myself in circumstances where they were breaking laws and yada, yada, yada. But at the end of it, you're still impacted by the violence that is you experience. So those are small details. But the point was my daughter saw that of me, and that's who I want her to know I am. And jiu-jitsu gave me that opportunity, whether it was some guy breaking the glass on the academy or, how much I've grown through emotional and mental like evolution through this jiu-jitsu journey. All of that value is there. So
yeah, man. Yep, that makes sense. We're here
so
to we're here to evolve, man. We're here to, I believe we chose this fucking path, man, to like, we're here on earth to evolve, however you want to look at it, our spirit, our soul, who we are. Like it's the journey. Nobody is going to get through this motherfucker like unscathed. If you're here, you're gonna face problems and issues, and you're gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah, and
And
that's
some people never deal with it, and who knows what's happened. Some people never put themselves in the situations to deal with it, and that gets back to taking it back to jujitsu. Like jujitsu is a clear path of putting yourself in a position to suffer, you know. And you can take that saying, what doesn't kill you make you stronger. I mean, in some situations, like, that fucking paper cutter choke where my goddamn head nearly popped off, that didn't kill me, but it definitely made me stronger, like it made me stronger, made me want to get better as a person,
and
you know.
the 2 years of hard training that you put in has raised your tolerance level of frustration and difficulty to a higher level that someone banging on your car door isn't going to get you angry, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you face
Yep.
adversity in much higher, more difficult ways. You don't look at it the same anymore. So how many people that like that guy, he hasn't faced adversity because how angering is it that someone parks in your parking spot? Who cares, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Who gives
whatever.
a
I don't
fuck?
care.
Yeah.
Good luck to you. Go ahead, man. I park at the farther parking lots away just because I'm like, you know what? Maybe there's like an old lady that wants to park in this front one, and
Yeah.
I'll let her park there, and I'll just go walk extra 100 feet. Who cares? But
Yeah.
I mean, how much adversity has he really faced that he's that upset about a parking stall? And maybe it has nothing to do with that. Maybe he's having a bad day or he lost a loved one. I don't know. But thankfully, you have the humility, and that's why I was trying to connect the two. Is maybe you're learning from the black belt, you know, in a different way. But hey, you're more patient. You're more kind in circumstances that don't really require anger. It just
Yeah.
goes, oh man, that guy's upset. I'm gonna stay over here.
Yeah.
So, and maybe how many people that don't train jujitsu, which is I think everyone should, and I think you do too. Um, then you face real adversity. Then you face real challenges and real frustration inside your own mind. Because I think I told you about how I was rolling with one of the blue belts, Jeff. So dang good. He's so good. He kicks my butt all the time. His mount, when he mounts you, it's like, okay, might as well type out because you're just going to maul me until I get out of here. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, he's so good. And he kicked my butt one time, and it was early on. And I was just getting frustrated. And I hit the mat, and coach looked at me like he gave that calm, peaceful black belt look, like, oh, I'm getting a little frustrated, huh? Like he just read me and knew that I was getting frustrated and continued to let me work through it, and help me guided me through that. And I'm like, man, I'm creating this mental frustration. So it's creating the anger that's coming out in my behavior. And through jujitsu, I'm learning how to let that go and stop being so critical of myself and stop getting so upset about when something's not working, because your worst day is your best, right?
Yeah, man.
So by these people that are out in public, not knowing, hey, someone parked in your parking stall. That's cool. How can you be more calm when that stuff happens? Someone in front of you cut you off. Oh, cool. How could you back up and give them more space so they can get in? Like all these little things that road rage and all these things people are getting angry about. Why is it that jujitsu has given us an ability to, show up differently in our life?
I think there's a lot of tension. I mean, just in the world, man, there's a lot of tension. I think a large majority of people are, we live in this domesticated life where you're taking this wild fucking beast and putting them in a box and giving them a fucking job and telling them they have to make this illusory fucking thing called money and that they'll be free when they have it. And it's just like taking a fucking, you go get a fucking go get a timber wolf and put that motherfucker in your backyard and see what happens. Go grab a fucking tiger and put it in your room, for a little while, see how it treats you. It's going to be unhappy as a motherfucker. And that's what we are. This society around us it's a big cage, man. And a lot of it is this mental cage that we're in. And people are filled with angst and anxiety, and you get depressed and you're fucking gonna explode. Why? Because you're not fucking living your life like in alignment with what with your happiness. And most people aren't. They're living their life in alignment with how can I get more of this illusory thing that called money that creates freedom for me, and I want this podcast and everything we do to be uh kind of just to get this message across that you can change that. You can create a life where you're happy all the time, and it has nothing to do with anything outside of yourself. That anger inside of you is because you're not in alignment with the universe, man. You're not in alignment with you're just living it. You're living in a cage, but the cage is mental. And whenever I see anger, it's an unhappy person who's not living in alignment. That's it, man. And honestly, if you sit down with a guy like that for long enough, you may be able to get the motherfucker on the right path, because
I'd love to.
um, what's that?
I would love to coach someone like that, because really, it's
Yeah, exactly.
anything that we're experiencing outside of us is just a reflection of what, as within, so without. So it's just,
100%.
if you're coming at me angry and I'm making stories about it in my head and I'm upset at you back, it's just something going on inside me. It's something I'm creating, a story I create in my head. So, how we see anything outside of us is what's really going on inside of us. And that's really, for someone to act like that, there's got to be some kind of pain, some sadness, some hurt, some challenge that he's not feeling adequately enough to experience or work through.
Yes.
And that just means people need support, compassion, understanding, and we don't get enough of that. Like you're saying, there's so much tension and judgment, and we're all caged up in this like inadequacy that we feel about ourselves that causes us to lash out in anger and cause harm.
Yeah.
And that's and granted, I have not figured this out. This is a declaration, and this is like a call to a higher ideal, which is, this is the whole point of this message. It's not, like I said, shared experience is the best. Like I shared how I was confrontational, I was violent, I was angry, and I've grown myself to a man that I didn't seek violence when that guy was banging on those windows. I saw it like to ease this tension and to guide him away from violence, and myself and the guys around me. Like I wanted to live into a higher ideal. I didn't want to cause harm, and that's the same thing you did when you didn't approach that guy who banged your car. How easy and justifiable would most people say, hey, you whacked my car, I'm going to go approach you. You know what I mean? And you could have handled that 17 different ways. And that's what I was saying. It's not about you did it wrong at all. I was just seeing, is there a connection between that black belt teaching us humility and that guy's experience? And like you said, anger isn't your choice anymore. And as a cop, I think we would have had a different approach if we were back then in that person.
Two things real quick before I forget. There's two things I want to touch on here, and I'll forget them if you keep going. So the first one is that you said, two things that you said that I want to touch on. The first one is when you're talking about the angst and all the fear in this society, and we're going down the philosophical rabbit hole here with this, but sometimes I like to do that. And if you also got to remember that everything is set up to keep you, like, if you watch, everything keeps people in fear, right? We're kept in fear. We're kept divided. We're kept at each other's throats. There's always a story in the media, some propaganda that's getting one side mad at the other side constantly. I'm vaccinated. I'm not. I'm pro this. I'm pro that. No, it's always keeping people angry and fighting, especially the past fucking 2 years. Look how much anger in our society there is toward other people, just because they're listening to some fucked up messages given to us by the people who control our lives, man. The people who we have to pay taxes to, you listen, the people who we have to fucking pay taxes to in order to live here in freedom, our freedom is taken, right? And then we listen to what they tell us and we fucking get mad at each other about it. Most of the time you hear somebody mad about some political shit or whatever, it's just a fucking message that's been given to you through the media. You're taking that message and you're letting it get you angry, And like you were saying, man, this is the other point, and you really have to think about this. And I just wanted to expand on this a little bit. I don't know how much time we have, but this is a very powerful concept that everybody should just remember every day. Your outside world, what you see in the world, is 100% a complete reflection of your inner world, man. It's a reflection of who you are. There's no blame. If there's someone you want to blame for the circumstances in your life, like if there's, it's all you. I've been blamed by people. I've blamed people, but everything going on in your life, man, if you start working on who you are inside, the world outside of you will change to reflect that 100%. And you mentioned that, but I just wanted to, if you're listening to that, hold on.
Internal reflection of what's going on inside you, that noise.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got right in the middle of that, I got a phone call that I didn't want to answer, mess up my whole thing here, but go ahead. Sorry about that. I'm trying to pull you back up.
Like for me, it's like, internally, I wasn't experiencing anger. I was seeing that man for who he was when he was responding the way he did. He was banging on the glass. He was being very aggressive. I didn't see that as confrontational. I didn't see that as angry. I saw him very agitated and scared and just lashing out,
Yeah.
And because of that, because of this humility and the grace and all the stuff I've learned through my inadequacies through jujitsu and all the patience, the guys that I trained with showed me and the patience that my coaches showed me, it really helped me um, give that to that guy, So, that was my internal state, was one of like, hey, it's okay. Everything is okay, to myself and to him. And that lessened and lessened and lessened his anger and aggression. And it kind of got hairy there for a few times where I'm like, oh crap, I'm gonna have to tackle him right now. And then he calmed down a little bit. And that's how you take life. You got to understand, I fail every single day, just like we fail every single day in jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm learning now, and I failed this morning. I got in an argument with my wife this morning when she's leaving for work. So I am not infallible because I'm on this podcast sharing these truths or whatever. We're sharing it because we're fallible, because we're human, and we want you to know that we're right there with you.
Yeah.
Right. And with parenting, and if it's this difficult to be married and to bump heads with your wife day to day, how difficult is it to go out in public where everyone's going in different directions in cars that are driving very fast, and you don't think you're going to piss someone off, even if you don't mean to, right? So give a little grace, give a little bit more space in the person in front of you. And if someone's going to cut in, you already gave them enough space. So even if they cut in, it doesn't really count as cutting in because they just went into the lane, and it's okay. Or how can you like acknowledge someone that's having a hard time or dropping something and you help them pick it up? Or I don't know, just be a little bit more humble. Like you started this podcast with, is that humility that black belt showed you. Is there's levels to this life game. And man, I struggle on days, and I need to be reminded, just like you remind me on certain days, and vice versa, and maybe, even be a little humble, but you got a phone call during our podcast. No big deal, right?
Yeah.
Like, it happens.
Yep.
Life happens. And
we're
man. Blessed. So.
Yeah, that's how it goes, man, and like you said, the as far as the humility, and I think we're getting close to, I'm not showing a timer here, but I think we're getting close to about close to our.
Yeah, we got 10 more minutes or something.
Okay, cool. Back to when I got cut off, just really quick, and this, I won't go too deep into this, and I don't want to harp on that situation, but I just want people to remember that, if you're listening to this, a couple things. Well, no, just the one thing, just how we create our fucking world, man, with, we create our world. And so however we're feeling inside is going to reflect in our world. And that comes back. What I was trying to get back to was the connection with jiu-jitsu and how it makes me feel and how it makes you feel. And going to jiu-jitsu and training and getting humbled and getting this amazing workout every day and challenging yourself every day makes you feel, it makes you vibrate at a higher level, man. It makes you feel good. And when you're feeling good like that on a regular basis, your life starts changing. And so jiu-jitsu is the engine, man, to put you in a place to be able to change your life, and if you haven't started, if you didn't know that, if you train a lot, you already know that, or maybe you haven't put the pieces to the puzzle of why your life's getting better with jiu-jitsu. It's because you're raising your vibration consistently, and that's the main reason I train. That's the main reason I train right there, to raise up my vibration, man, so.
Yeah, I think that connection's humongous, and it ties a bow on this podcast because for me, would I be the same guy that enters that circumstance of that angry person differently if I didn't have this year and a half in jiu-jitsu and the learning that I got from it,
Yeah.
Would I approach it differently with police experience and PTSD and everything else,
Yeah.
Probably. So how blessed am I that, I had a human being like my professor teach me how to be more humble and teach me how to work through my frustration and my challenges internally that were impacting my external world, like you're saying. And I think I have a lot of gratitude towards my coach and towards my training partners to push me physically, to mentally challenge me by giving me the resistance and the struggle and the adversity I needed to face to start being more humble, more kind, more compassionate, and I fall short on this every single day, but that's the ideal, right? That's what we're trying to live into through self-mastery, is learning how to grow in this every single day and take experiences that we're going through moment to moment, going to get boba and getting your car smashed or whatever, it's like, hey, that's like a tough role. getting your head popped off by a black belt. It's like, hey, how'd you respond? Did you go like, oh, this sucks, I quit? Or did you go, hey, wow, whoa, he taught me a lot, right?
Yep.
And so there goes in the lesson is like, man, jiu-jitsu has a lot, especially if you know someone that's a cop, or, there's a lot that we're trying to share in our message. And there's a lot of different kind of people we're trying to connect to with this, because we've had different experiences, right? Shared experiences, where it is. We can connect with a bunch of different people, dads, people just starting in jiu-jitsu, cops, we have a lot of different experience that brings us to this podcast and these experiences that we're sharing. Not saying we handle them perfectly, but man, we're openly sharing them so that we can all relate and learn together.
Yeah,
I
man.
think that's the ideal of jiu-jitsu. Is like, hey, we're coming at this with all different perspectives and experience levels and athletic ability, and we're all going to create different resistance for each other, and we're going to learn from each other as we do it. And we're all going to be at different skill levels, and everyone can learn from everyone.
Right on, man. I think that's a beautiful speech to end this episode on, man. And so, yeah, man, if you are, on social media, make sure you follow us at the IncreaseLife and at the Will. I'm at the IncreaseLife. William is at the Will Dennis. Subscribe to this podcast, follow it. Let us know. Give us any feedback, rate and review it if you would. We'd appreciate it. And we'll continue to bring, our stories and what's going on in our life to you. We're loving the feedback we're getting. And that's why we're doing it, to just try to provide some value. Like we said before, we do this anyway. So these are the conversations we have. If we weren't recording this podcast, me and William have these same fucking conversations every day. So we decided, let's share it. Somebody may get some value from it. So hit us up. We love to connect with you, and we appreciate you listening for sure. So I think that's good, man, for this week. And yeah, good shit, William. Thanks for your time, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate talking with you. And we will reconvene soon next week. And yeah, that's about it, man. And get some training in tonight.
Awesome, man.
Right on. All right, dude. I'll talk to you soon, and have a good day, man. Love you, bro.
All right. Love you too.
All right.
Bye.